At 7:32 a.m., the front office of Hawthorne Middle School smelled like overripe apples and burnt coffee. Ms. Jensen, the secretary, didn't look up from her desk when the young man walked in, hooded sweatshirt, backpack slung over one shoulder, clipboard in hand. He waited politely at the counter, cleared his throat. "I'm here to cover for Mr. Owens. Science." Now she looked up, a pause. Then, "Students aren't allowed up here without a pass." Homeroom started already. He smiled, not unkindly. "I'm not a student." Her head tilted slightly, as if processing something out of sync. He held out the sub paperwork. She didn't take it. "You're the sub?" she asked, skeptical. "Yep." A second pause. Her eyes narrowed, scanning his face, then his clothes. "You look about 14. He chuckled. "I've heard worse." Ms. Jensen finally took the clipboard, flipping through the forms. Her eyes darted back and forth between the paper and his ID. Behind her, the bell rang. "You're in room 214, she said finally. "Down the hall, second left." "Thank you," he said, calm, unbothered, like he'd done this before. She watched him go, then picked up the phone. "Yeah," she said to someone on the other end. "We've got a situation." The classroom was louder than it should have been. Chairs scraped. A couple of boys were throwing wadded paper into a trash can like it was a hoop. A girl sat on the teacher's desk, scrolling on her phone. No one looked up when he entered. He didn't raise his voice, just walked to the front, set his bag down, picked up a dry erase marker and wrote his name on the board. "Mr. Carter." Someone laughed near the back. "Who's this? The new hall monitor?" A few snickers followed. Mr. Carter turned around, slowly. No anger in his expression. No sharp commands. Just a look, direct and steady. "Phones away," he said evenly. "Seats. We're starting." The girl on the desk raised an eyebrow. "Are you serious?" He didn't answer, just held her gaze. Eventually, she slid off the desk and found her seat. Others followed, some with smirks, others with mild confusion. When they were all sitting, Mr. Carter opened the textbook. "Page 42, he said. "Intro to Ecosystems." A boy in a hoodie raised his hand lazily. "Do you even have a degree?" Mr. Carter looked at him. "Do you even have your book open?" The class went quiet. One by one, they turned pages. The mood had shifted. No one knew exactly why, but something about the way he stood there, unshaken, made them listen. From the hallway, Ms. Jensen peeked through the small window in the door, watching, still suspicious, but also uncertain. By 8:10 a.m., the class had stopped testing him. They weren't quiet exactly, but they weren't mocking him anymore. The energy had settled into something else, watchful, waiting. Mr. Carter asked questions, simple ones. No one raised their hands at first, just gave each other side glances like, "Is this guy for real?" Then Mia, near the front, answered one. Confidently, he nodded. "Exactly right." Another hand went up, then another. They started to lean in bit by bit, not because he was trying hard to impress them. He wasn't. It was how he listened when they spoke, how he didn't interrupt, how he didn't pretend to know things he didn't. By 8:26, even the boy in the hoodie had opened his notebook. Then the door creaked open. A woman in a navy pantsuit walked in briskly, heels sharp on the floor. Principal Stafford, clipboard in hand. She scanned the room with practiced authority. "I need a word with the sub," she said, not asking. Mr. Carter followed her into the hallway. She didn't look at him when she spoke. "You're not listed on our sub-roster. I've confirmed with the district." He didn't flinch. "I know," he said calmly. She frowned. "Then why are you in that room?" Mr. Carter handed her a card from his wallet. Thin, white, official. She looked at it. Her eyebrows lifted. "Oh." He didn't smile. "I'm not the substitute," he said. "I'm the new director of instruction. Just observing today." She looked back toward the door of room 214, then at him again. No apology came out of her mouth, just silence, and the weight of a realization that came too late. When Mr. Carter stepped back into room 214, the chatter died instantly. The students watched him, eyes flicking toward the principal still visible through the window, her posture stiff, mouth tight. He walked to the front without saying a word, picked up the marker again, wrote a question beneath his name. "What defines a healthy system?" He turned and looked at the class. "Let's talk about this," he said, his voice steady. "Not just in nature, but here, in schools, in classrooms." A few students blinked, unsure what he meant. Mia raised her hand. Like, rules. Maybe, he said. What else? A quiet fell again, different from before. Thoughtful. One student said, respect. Another, after a beat, being fair. Mr. Carter nodded. Those are good answers. And what happens when a system forgets that? Nobody spoke. He didn't push. Just let it hang. Behind him, Principal Stafford had left the window. The hallway was empty again. Mr. Carter capped the marker. Let's keep going. Page 43. The kids turned their pages, slower this time. No one looked bored anymore. They were starting to wonder who he really was. And some of them, the quieter ones in the back, were already beginning to guess. Downstairs, the teacher's lounge buzzed with quiet gossip. Mr. Carter's name hadn't been said out loud. Not yet, but the questions had started. Who's the guy upstairs with Owen's class? Did you see the principal pull him into the hallway? Thought he was a college intern. Kid looks 25. A veteran science teacher, Mrs. Keller, sipped her tea and shrugged. Well, whoever he is, he's got Stafford pacing like someone just rearranged her filing cabinet without asking. Chuckles followed. Across the room, Coach Bennett looked up from his crossword. Didn't say a word when he walked in this morning. Just nodded, like he owned the place. Someone else muttered, that's what's weird. He didn't try to own it. Just did. They went quiet for a moment. It was too early in the year for anyone to be making that kind of impression. Ms. Jensen entered, holding her phone like it might bite her. She didn't sit down. I just got an email, she said. From district. All heads turned. About the new director of instruction. He's observing unannounced this week. Starts today. Another pause. Then, his name's Carter? Ms. Jensen nodded. Coach Bennett whistled low. So he's not the sub. Nope. Mrs. Keller put down her tea. Well, she said, some folks up there might want a redo of how they greeted him this morning. Back in room 214, the lesson had shifted. They were no longer reading from the textbook. Mr. Carter had asked them to write something instead. Just a question on the board. What does fairness look like to you? At first, they stared at it like it was a trick. Then one by one, they started to write. Some scribbled quickly. Others hesitated, staring out the window or chewing their pencils. No one talked. He walked between the rows, not reading over their shoulders, just present. Calm. Not judging. At the back, the boy in the hoodie paused mid-sentence. Looked up. Is this part of the science lesson? Mr. Carter stopped beside him. It's part of every lesson, even when it's not in the book. The boy nodded slowly, then went back to writing. At the front, Mia had finished early. She raised her hand again. Why did you come here like that? She asked. Like a regular person. A few students looked up, the ones who had been wondering the same thing. Mr. Carter leaned against the desk. Because people show you who they are when they think you're not watching. He said it without bitterness, just fact. The room was still. Even the clock ticking above the whiteboard sounded louder than usual. None of them knew quite what to make of that answer. But all of them were listening now. At 9:15, the bell rang. Chairs scraped, backpacks zipped, the usual scramble to the door. But it wasn't as chaotic as it had been earlier. Something had shifted. A few students lingered, hovering near the front, pretending to tie shoes, waiting for someone else to make the first move. Mia was the one who spoke. You're not coming back, are you? Mr. Carter gave her a small smile. Not to this room, but I'll be around. She nodded, unsure what to say next. The boy in the hoodie approached slowly. No swagger this time. Mr. Carter, I didn't mean to be a jerk. Earlier. Mr. Carter looked at him, calm. I know. The boy hesitated. You ever teach for real? I still do, he said. Just in a different way. That answer seemed to confuse him, but he didn't ask more. He just gave a quiet nod, then slipped out the door. By the time the room was empty, only Mr. Carter remained. He looked at the board, at the words still written in uneven student handwriting. What does fairness look like to you? He stood there for a long moment, then quietly erased the question. Not because it didn't matter, but because they'd already started answering it, whether they knew it or not. Upstairs, in a small conference room with too much sunlight and too little warmth, Principal Stafford sat stiffly at the end of the table. Two assistant principals flanked her, both looking down at the printed agenda that now felt irrelevant. Mr. Carter entered without knocking. He didn't sit, just stood at the head of the table, setting a small folder down in front of him. I observed one class, he began. That was enough. Stafford shifted. If I'd known. He raised a hand, not unkindly. That's the point. You weren't supposed to. The room went quiet. Mr. Carter opened the folder, but didn't look down. Your school has strong infrastructure. Good teachers. Strong test scores. Then his voice shifted, softer, firmer. But a culture that makes quick judgments. About kids. About people who walk in the door. Neither assistant principal spoke. Stafford did, finally. With respect, you showed up in a hoodie and jeans. We have security concerns. Protocol. Protocol didn't stop you from dismissing me before I said a word, he replied. Still calm. Still direct. You assumed. So did others. She didn't argue. Mr. Carter closed the folder again. I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I'm here to improve the way we lead. He let that sit. Not as a warning. As a truth. Stafford nodded. Quietly. Understood. Good, he said. Because this wasn't about me. It was a test. And whether you know it or not. He paused. You weren't the only ones being graded today. Word travels fast in schools. By mid-morning, the lounge was buzzing louder than before. Not just curiosity this time, something else. Unease. Regret. Coach Bennett leaned against the vending machine, arms folded, shaking his head. So he is district, he muttered. Director of instruction. Mrs. Keller looked down at her tea. We sized him up before he said a word. A younger teacher near the microwave said, he walked past me this morning and I didn't even say hello. Thought he was some kid trying to find the counselor. No one laughed. In the corner, Mr. Patel, who taught social studies, added quietly. He walked the halls like he was collecting evidence, but never looked angry, just watching. Ms. Jensen finally spoke. He gave me his paperwork. I told him students couldn't be in the front office without a pass. They all looked at her. She shrugged, a little too quickly. He just smiled. A silence settled in again. Not awkward, reflective, like everyone had just realized they'd been seen without knowing it. Mrs. Keller stood, gathering her things. I'm going to tell my students something today, she said. What's that? Someone asked. That sometimes grown-ups get it wrong. No one argued. Mr. Carter moved through the halls slowly. No clipboard. No visible badge. Just presence. He stepped into classrooms mid-lesson. Didn't interrupt. Just stood near the back listening. Watching. Some teachers noticed and stiffened. Others pretended not to. A few kept teaching as though he wasn't there at all. But every now and then, their voices softened or their posture straightened. One class was working on a group project. Posters, markers, desks pushed together. Mr. Carter walked past a table where a quiet boy sat slightly apart, watching the others but not participating. His hands were clean, his paper blank. Mr. Carter knelt beside him. Not your group, he asked softly. The boy shrugged. They said I could write the title. Mr. Carter looked at the half-finished poster. They giving you a pen for that? The boy's eyes flicked down. No. Mr. Carter nodded once, then stood. He didn't make a scene, didn't scold anyone, just walked over to the teacher, said something in a calm whisper, then stepped out. 3 minutes later, the teacher regrouped the students. Let's try that again. Everyone contributes. No exceptions. In the hallway, Mr. Carter kept walking. Small moments, quiet shifts, the kind that told him everything he needed to know. That afternoon, in a small apartment on the edge of town, Jamal's mother answered her phone with one hand while stirring spaghetti sauce with the other. Hello. Hi, Ms. Watkins? This is Mr. Carter. I met Jamal today observing at his school. She paused, wary. Is he in trouble? No, Mr. Carter said. Quite the opposite. She set the spoon down. I just wanted to tell you something I saw. He spoke up today in class, offered an idea no one else had thought of. Got the room thinking. It was a moment worth noticing. Ms. Watkins sat down slowly. That doesn't happen much. He usually keeps to himself. I could tell, Mr. Carter said. But when he did speak, it mattered. There was a pause on the line, then a soft exhale. Thank you, she said. You're welcome, he replied. Sometimes kids need someone to say it out loud. She smiled, though he couldn't see it. So do grown-ups. Mr. Carter didn't say anything to that, just nodded, as if she could somehow feel it. Then thanked her for her time and hung up. The sauce simmered. The kitchen quieted. And for the first time in a long time, Ms. Watkins sat back and allowed herself to believe, just a little, that her son might actually be seen this year. That evening, after the building had emptied and the sun dipped behind the gymnasium, Mr. Carter sat alone in the staff office. Lights dim, screen bright. He typed slowly. Subject, what I saw today. He addressed it to the faculty, copying no one else. No district leaders. No board members. Just the people who'd been there. The message wasn't long. To the staff at Hawthorne Middle. Today I walked your halls, sat in your classrooms, and listened. I saw students trying hard not to be invisible. I saw teachers managing more than just lessons. I saw missed chances and quiet resilience. This building has potential. But potential means nothing if the culture doesn't match. We judge fast. Too fast. We assume. We label. But today some of you paused, rethought, reached out. That's where change begins. I'll be back. Not with warnings. Just presence. Keep showing up. Your students already are. Mr. Carter, Director of Instruction. He read it once more. Didn't edit. Didn't add. Then hit send. Outside, the parking lot was nearly empty. Just a few janitorial staff finishing up, the same ones most never noticed. Mr. Carter stood, picked up his bag, and quietly walked out the side door. By 7:05 the next morning, teachers were reading the email. Some skimmed it quickly on their phones in the parking lot. Others read it twice at their desks before the first bell. A few sat with it open on their screens but didn't scroll, just stared at the words. In the lounge, the usual small talk was quieter. Coach Bennett said nothing, just nodded at Ms. Jensen as she poured her coffee slower than usual. Mrs. Keller folded the printed email in half, tucked it into her lesson planner like it might be something worth keeping. I didn't know what he was doing, said a young math teacher. Thought he was judging. He was, Mrs. Keller said, but not the way we assumed. Down the hall, the boy in the hoodie, Jamal, walked into first period science, same as always. But today, the teacher didn't ask for homework right away. Instead, she looked up and said, "Hey Jamal, good to see you." He froze for a half second, then nodded quietly. In room 214, Mia took her seat and glanced at the whiteboard. It was blank now, but something about the space felt different, like it might still be holding a question. Over the next week, nothing changed, and everything did. No announcements were made, no posters hung, no memos, but teachers paused longer before correcting. Students looked up more when they spoke. The laughter in the halls still came, but it sounded less sharp, less guarded. One morning, Ms. Jensen looked up from her desk when a student came in without a pass. She didn't ask what he was doing there. She asked if he needed help. Mr. Patel started greeting his students by name. Every one of them, even the ones who barely mumbled a hello. In room 214, the new long-term sub arrived. Mid-30s, glasses, patient voice. She introduced herself and gave her first instructions. Before we start, I want to do one thing. She picked up the marker and wrote on the board. What does fairness look like to you? No one laughed. A few students exchanged quiet glances. Jamal raised his hand. Just once. I think it looks like being seen. Before someone decides who you are. The teacher nodded. That's a strong start. Mia looked down at her notebook. This time, she didn't just write the question. She wrote her answer. 2 weeks later, Mr. Carter returned. No announcement. No formal visit. Just him. Walking the halls again. Clipboard tucked under one arm. Same calm presence. Some staff nodded. Others stood a little straighter when they saw him. He passed room 214. Didn't go in. Paused. Through the narrow window, he saw students bent over notebooks. The new teacher was leaning on a desk, listening to a boy speak. Jamal. Mr. Carter smiled, just a little, then kept walking. At the end of the hall, Principal Stafford stood waiting. I read the latest student feedback report, she said as he approached. Discipline referrals are down. Engagement is up. Mr. Carter nodded. She hesitated, then added, we're paying attention now, even when no one's watching. Good, he said. He turned to leave but paused, then glanced back down the hallway. Quiet, steady, alive with the hum of small changes. You don't fix a school by writing new policies, he said. You fix it by seeing people, then making sure they know you saw them. Stafford said nothing, just watched him walk away. As Mr. Carter exited the building, a student held the door open for him. No one told him to. He just did. And somewhere upstairs, a whiteboard still held a question no one wanted to erase.